There you go. Better unmute myself. Ladies and gentlemen, good evening, good morning, good afternoon, whenever you get to watch tonight's show. And welcome back to the first show of the year of my own. Spend that much time producing and helping other people. But you're welcome. I am Big Joe Chef, founder and chief bloke at the three-bod rugby group, as it is now. But we still maintain our own individual show within the group. Three Blokes at Ball and Bod, looking at a whole variety of different things. Tonight, I have no control over absolutely everything. Tonight, Brandon Smith, who is one half of hosting of our Welsh show, is producing and directing in the background. So thank you to him for that. If you've got any messages to go up, Gregor Goy, good evening to you. You're most welcome to the show as ever. And tonight we will be looking at part one of a two-part special to start us off of the 2021 Guinness Six Nations. And tonight we'll be looking at the squads that have been picked, the inclusions, the omissions, what we think that the coaches are going to be doing, style of play, tactics. Come on to more of that later. And we've got a plethora of people to cover all of the nations that are absolutely involved. So you're most welcome to the show. Three Blokes of Ball and Bod, part of the new three-bod rugby group. We hope you enjoy yourself, and if you've got anything for the panelists tonight, then please stick it up and ask them. They are the experts. To start us off, though, we are Ian Gilbert, I just see there. Hola from Madrid, our ambassador extraordinary. Welcome as ever. Thank you for your support. And Joe Lyons again. So we only have you you only have me to abuse tonight. No, we've got 5, 6, 7, 9 people, I think it is in total tonight. Anyway, on with the show. To start us off, we've got 3 guys who are going to talk to something that's very, very close to my own heart and to many about mental health. So, Brandon, let's bring in the guests and we'll get them to introduce themselves. They are a fan in 5. We've got 8 to 10 minutes to get them thrown in. Excuse me. You'll recognise one of them because one of them is our joint co-host of our Springbok and South African rugby roundup show, Drie Bokker Ball and Blitsbok, Andy Daniel, an Englishman living in Paarl in South Africa. Andy, how are you?
Yeah, very good, Joe. Very good, mate.
Good, mate. So glad we can get you and the lads on tonight. And joining, Mark, tell us a little bit of, Mark and Jack are joining as well. Andy, sorry, you're going to start with you. Very, very quickly, tell us a little bit about the mental health project, the rugby team and what it's about and your involvement in it, because I think it's fab.
Yeah, so about maybe a year and a bit ago, I saw that the RPA were doing some great stuff, obviously around professional rugby players at the end of their career. But it was quite clear to me that not a lot was being done at grassroots level. And one of the reasons was actually Mark, who happens to be my brother who's on the show tonight, was really struggling after having to give up. He injured his shoulder and started, getting anxiety and suffering with things like that. So I was kind of watching this all unfold, and I wanted to start comparing the two between the professional and the amateur guys. And actually, I've always found writing quite therapeutic. So the guys, I managed to get quite a few guys actually to write their accounts, including David Rose, the ex-professional referee, still a TMO, a South African guy who played for Poe. And other than the salary, I suppose, and the lifestyle, the first thing that everybody mentioned was teammates, smell of the dressing room, after the game, first beers, and everything that goes with being part of a rugby club, no matter whether it's in the Premiership or whether it's at grassroots level. And anyway, off the back of Mark's account that he wrote and we published, a few of the guys at his rugby club, Nelson and Backwell, came forward and said they were also struggling as well with some things. And they've since created a support group called Men's Talk, and they'll tell you more about it. And they meet on the 3rd Monday of every month, virtually at the moment, unfortunately. And they've had professional help come in and work with them as well. So they're not claiming to be the experts in mental health, but they know how it feels and to struggle with it. And that's where it's come from, really. It's snowballed from that, which is just great.
Absolutely, mate. Listen, thanks very much for that intro. It's short and sharp tonight, but I know we're going to get you back on over the months and to give us some more updates what you're doing. Mark, tell us a little bit about Nelson Backwell and your own journey in this very briefly and why it's important to what you're doing, Leather.
Good evening. Thanks for having us on, by the way. It's a pleasure to be able to talk to people and just tell us what we're trying to tell everyone what we're trying to do. As Andy said before, he said I had to stop playing suddenly due to an injury, and there's probably a lot of people that can relate. And it just finished. There it was, done within a split second. I was finished. I played rugby for 30 years, and then it was all over. And I took a bit of time out, came back and then got an offer to come back and just help out, sort of thing. And I went up for the first training session. It was too much. I couldn't handle it. I wasn't that rugby player anymore. I couldn't identify as that person that I was for those 30 years. So I went away again, and it just spiraled really out of control, and I couldn't understand what was going on, why I was feeling the way I was feeling, anxiety, depression, everything. And so then I needed some answers. So I first thing was I wrote something down on paper with Andy, and that felt good because it opened doors for some other people came forward and go, actually, I'm feeling like that. Well, if Mark's done it, maybe it might help me. And I think it helped them as well a couple of times. And then so I stayed away from the rugby club for a little bit because it was a bit too painful. And then one of the chaps down there came back after me, if you like, and tried again, because it meant a lot that he hadn't forgotten that I'd turned it down the first time or walked away the first time. And then it was literally, I think, the second or third time I was up there, up in the bar afterwards, just about ready to go home, and I was get a tap on the shoulder from a fellow member, and he was like, I've seen your article. It's changed the way I'm feeling. It's exactly what I'm feeling, and I need some help, and it's opened it up for me. And I was like, oh, okay, no problems. And then so that was one. Another one about 20 minutes later, and I'm going downstairs. I'm leaving the door. Before you go, I've read your article. I'm struggling as well, and what can we do about it? So anyway, time rolls on. A few more people will have some conversations, and there's the core group of probably like 3 or 4 of us that are saying, oh, I've heard from so-and-so, and I've heard from so-and-so, and there's something we can do here. There's a problem, and there's something we can do here. And then ultimately, we've just tried to start something rolling, and we've got loads of different names, loads of different ways of approaching. We spoke to some professionals and saying, you can go down this route, you can go down this route, but we're sort of finding our feet, and we sort of set this up, sort of thing. This is a starter. We've got an agenda. We don't want to raise money. We're not after money. We're not after. We just want to get people to be able to, like, an environment so people can come and have a chat or talk to us in the bar that day the bar reopens. Yeah.
And it's that awareness raising level. Where, I mean, there's people doing lots and lots of good stuff and raising money, but yours isn't, is it? Yours, Jack, is about raising that awareness by getting people involved in doing things. Mark, listen, thanks for that, man. I'm going to follow this whole journey right the way through. Jack, welcome to the show, mate. Tell us a little bit. I know Brian's going to put up some images, but tell us a little bit about what people are actually doing as part of this.
Yeah, so we're not asking for people's money, as Mark said. What we're asking is for people to donate their miles, right? So I think motivation is at an all-time low at the moment. Certainly around our rugby group. The group chat's silent. There's not a lot going on. People are just about surviving day to day, I think, and there's not a lot of capacity for much more than that. All we can do at the moment is we can get out and we can exercise. But even that, it loses its motivation. So what we're trying to do is just get everybody who can go out. That there's just a bit of purpose now to the exercise. The one bit that they can do, a bit of purpose to the exercise. Try and get some miles in. We'll all donate it to a big pot, and we'll see if we can get to each Six Nations stadium. Like, it's just something that will progress as we're waiting and we're waiting for time to pass, aren't we? We're just sort of told to hurry up and wait until we can return to normality. So hopefully this is a welcome distraction, and it gets people out, it gets people moving, which we all know is massively important for both your physical and your mental health.
Because we need to get on. I forget tonight. I'm not in control of anything, so I have no hands. I can't be blamed if I get muted tonight. Probably all my best things will be unheard, I say. But tell us, how can people follow you and join you in what they need to do, Mark?
We've set up a Facebook page. And we've got a Twitter running, but I think everything seems to be running through the Facebook page, and I'm not sure if the link will go up, or we can certainly sort something out. And then we're not exclusive to our rugby club. I mean, we'll throw it open to anybody, anywhere in the world. If you want to throw us your miles, if it helps you out, we'll all throw in together, because we're all one rugby community. And if anybody wants to help us out, and we're all going to get in together and see how many miles we can cover.
Superb. I've just seen the Brandon's just kindly put that up there. Facebook group is at Raven Men Talk. That is in the comments there, lads. Excuse me, I'm in the process. I've been 2 weeks in to my 0 to 5K and getting out and trying to sort my own head out and get a little bit fitter and a little bit less fatter. So I will be thinking of you every single time I'm struggling to pound 57 nearly to pound a couple of miles. I say pound in a very sort of slow. I walk with purpose, gentlemen, but getting out there is the serious point. So at Raven Men Talk on Facebook, please go and follow them. Just put a message up there to support them. Throw a picture up. I mean, I'm on Strava as part of the Pure Sport CBD Will Googer's group. And I put up there how I'm feeling every single day. And you know what? One of the things, it doesn't matter whether it's like a Culloden field or something, or I'm feeling rough, or I'm struggling with, my body's hurting. I'm getting out there and doing something. And it's called BJS and Bod, the journey continues. And I put the day in and I say exactly how I'm feeling. And that's all we need to do. So I think the initiative, guys, what you're doing is absolutely fab. So that is Nailsea and Backwell Rugby Football Club, correct? Facebook, the Facebook link is at Raven Men Talk, and we'll stick that's up in there in the comments for people to go. Andy, listen, thanks very much for bringing this to us. I think what you're doing is great. Mark and Jack, please let us know. We'll get you back on in a couple of months and see how everybody is doing, and just generally what a grassroots club is doing, because you are a symbol of many out there who are doing great work to be able to keep that going. And Mark, I hope, there we go, well done. Thanks, Bran. I sincerely hope that you get back into things and get yourself into a place where you're comfortable again. And I do feel, because that I've got 40 minutes in me, but physically my body and mentally I'm telling myself, but physically it won't happen. But that 40 minutes is still there. So I wish you all the best, brother. I really, really do. Lads, Andy, finish.
Right, Joe, yeah, just one last comment. If anyone wants to join in and like send us your screenshots of your Stravas and stuff like that, even better is pictures of you in your rugby club's colours, whether it's a bobble hat, whether it's an odd balls hat, whatever. If it's the shirt, then we'll tag your rugby club in, and we'll just grow it from there and just keep tagging rugby clubs in, man. Just bear that in mind. Photos, funny, make us laugh. Every single one that sends in far, and me and Jack are trying to keep up, have gone on to Facebook, so they all get put on there as evidence. So yeah, great, brilliant,
guys. We need to crack on. Andy, Mark, Jack, thanks very, very much. We'll keep abreast of you going, and we'll encourage people through the rugby group to be putting pictures and images up and sharing the stories when we go. Andy, Mark, Jack, good luck. We'll chat to you again in the future. Thanks.
Thank you, Joe. Thanks, Andy. Thank you.
Well, there you go. Fantastic, innovative idea that the lads are doing. That's Nailsea and Backwell Rugby Football Club at Raven Men Talk. Go to Facebook on that. Okay, Six Nations. We are going to bring some people in now. We're going to talk about the Six Nations. Let's get this gig on the road. Part one of a two-part show. Next Monday is part two, when the team will be the same team. We'll be previewing the round one games, a week on Saturday, Friday and Sunday. And tonight we're looking at the squads, inclusions, the omissions, tactics, and all that sort of thing. So please help me, Brandon, bring people into the studio, and we'll introduce them as they're coming in. Oh, look, it's just rolling and rolling and rolling. Oh, look at these people. And we've got we've got someone who's going to cover Italy coming shortly as well. Debs Knight, representing England in the 365 Sporting Days. Good evening, how are you?
I'm very good, thank you. How are you?
Oh,
Good.
absolutely brilliant. Thanks for taking the time. Thanks for taking the time to come and tell us why you believe Eddie Jones and England will win yet another Six Nations. We'll come back to that shortly, and whether he's got the right semblance of people. John Anderson from the Scottish Rugby Podcast. You're welcome, mate. Love all the stuff that you and the guys, Ian and Cammy, are doing. And proud to be a Patreon supporter of you for a 6-month period. That's quite good as well. Supporting local and then global. Mate, you're going to tell us why Scotland, this time round, Greg is going to sort of take you to the top of the table, mate, aren't you? How are you?
Yeah, very well, Joe. Thanks for that intro, and obviously thanks for your Patreon support. More than appreciated. Did we read your name out? I don't know.
No. I wasn't going to mention it, but that's okay, mate.
Cammy's he's a liability. Need to get him sorted. We're talking about Scotland.
If Bob doesn't get a mention, mate, he gets pissed off with me. So that's Cammy's going to mention Bob next week. There we go. Send a photo. Listen, welcome to the show, mate. I actually think there's some really good things happening with Scotland, although the rest of the Scottish support possibly doesn't. We'll come back to that. We have got looking after Wales tonight. The other half of our Welsh Rugby Roundup show, the Dragons Balls. They had a phenomenal interview this afternoon with a former Welsh and British Lion. Man who played 2001 British Lions tour to Australia, scored a try, played in 3 games, for James. So looking forward to that one coming out. Please welcome Rhiannon Phillips. Rhiannon, how are you?
Fine, thank you. And yeah, I was always a fan of David. Always thought he was a vastly underestimated player, and he was so insightful and just the way he talked. It's an interview really worth watching when it comes out, because he's an absolute star. And still is doing so much work with charity, and given your first subject, mental health.
Yeah, absolutely. And we're going to get this. So that was recorded one tonight with Daft James, and we're going to come out with clips of that, and then the full episode will come out later in the week. So congratulations to you and Brandon for scoring that one. That was really, really good. Well done. Representing France, I'm not leaving my man Nige to the end, but he is the Night King, so he deserves that sort of fitting bit at the end. As you will all see tonight, I'm trying to be impartial. I had a plethora of green jerseys I could have picked, but impartial tonight. Representing France, he is actually torn between partly England and France. Luke Voyame. Luke, good evening to you. How are you?
Good evening. I'm well, thank you. How are you?
Yeah, good, mate. Listen, thanks for coming back on again, mate. Everybody enjoyed you last time. Great to have Alain Le Bleu. There we go. Great to have French contingents on now, and of course you'll be vying with Debs to tell us why. France's opportunity to hit the big time and take this title. So we'll see how we get on, because you've been building a squad like everybody else should have done really for the last 18 months, and we know that. So we'll be interested to see your thoughts now. And our Italian coverage will come shortly. And just a big shout out to our very good friend Andrea Tronca from Italy, who's our normal guest who covers our Italy stuff for us. And our thoughts go to you and your family, mate, in some pretty difficult times of late. And we look forward to seeing you back in the future. So more thoughts to you, my friend. Finally, last but not least, it is the Night King, one half of the team that runs our White Walkers Chat and Crack, the Ulster Rugby Roundup show. It is Nigel. How are you, Nigel?
Hi, guys. How's it going?
Good. Nice shirt, mate. I probably another one for my collection. Right, on with tonight's show. If you've got, look, Kevin Hale of the All Black Irish jersey, come on. Let's start ourselves off. So tonight we're looking at squads, inclusion, and missions. Brandon is producing the show for us tonight. We'll stick some images up as we go through. And we have to celebrate this week, Deb's time. We're going to start with England. 150 years old, effectively. The Rugby Football Union is the first, I believe, the first ever formal. There we go, 26th of January this week, 150th anniversary of the Rugby Football Union, the first ever formed proper rugby union. So great historic stuff going on there. You know, where the game started, not where it is at the moment, but that's where the game started. So Debs, Brand's going to put up the English squad. Just talk us through. There was one thing I was discussing this afternoon, by the way, lads, and somebody can probably correct me on it. Is the numbers allowed the squad? Because I think Ireland got 35, Scotland got 36, Somebody else has got 30. Wales is in 36 or 37. And Eddie's got, I think it's 28 and a shadow squad, Debs, of 12.
Yeah.
We're going to cover the likes of Joe Marler and people like that, and some of the newbies. But what's your take on this small 28 squad and a shadow squad, and what's Eddie's madness? Because he always has a reason behind everything he does. Tell us about what you think about England.
I actually think some of the situation with the shadow squad, first of all, we've been used to having apprentices, haven't we, around about the England squad. And then you look and you see Jonathan Joseph in there with 54 caps. So it's not that. I think this squad are going to be following the COVID protocols very closely, this shadow squad. But they're not going to be in the situation where they don't know until the Tuesday whether they're going to be playing at the weekend or not. So therefore being sent back to their club. So I think it probably gives a little bit more certainty for their home clubs. And I think we'll see a fair few of them going back to their clubs. One of the interesting things is that we know Joe Marler has stepped away from the main squad. I read his book over Christmas. I can highly recommend it. It's a fantastic read. And it really gives you an insight to him as a man. I'd say even within the first chapter, you think, right, that I understand now why he is the way he is. And it doesn't surprise me at all that he won't want to be away from his family for 8 weeks. But his replacement is not on that shadow squad list. It's somebody called Tom West coming from Wasps. So I guess props are quite hard to come by, aren't they? Let's be honest. We've got Benno Orbano making a debut possibly during the tournament. But I found that very interesting. I was expecting to see a name that was in the shadow squad, as Charlie Ewells is, who's replacing Joe Launchbury, who has a stress fracture in his leg, which is a real shame, actually, because I think he's been in pretty amazing form recently. And he brings an awful lot of leadership onto the pitch. So I think that's a real shame that he's not there. But as I say, Charlie Ewells will come in instead for him. I don't know. Eddie just seems to like doing things differently, doesn't he? That would be my on it. There are some new names in and around those 3 different sets, backs, forwards and shadow squad. I'm excited to see Harry Randall included. Sure. And I hope he gets to play. I'm a little bit concerned that Paolo Adogru might have been included to stop Italy grabbing hold of him. He's a very exciting young player. Actually was a Tiger, is now at Wasps. Amazing how many good players Tigers let go.
Yeah, absolutely.
And of course we've got the 5 Saracens are in that main squad, which is an interesting thought because 4 of them haven't played rugby since I think it's the 8th of December. So I believe they've been on personal training plans. But obviously, that doesn't quite make up for match time experience. Yeah, absolutely. And yet, I think they'll be starters, actually. So, yeah, it's interesting.
Cool. Great overview to start with. Paolo, interesting. He also plays for, we follow the Rambling Jesters, which is the international touring sevens team, which is owned by a friend of ours. And he's a very, very exciting player. But yes, he is of Nigerian and Italian extraction as well. So he could have played for either of those tier 1 teams, Nigeria or Italy. But Eddie's picked him up in all seriousness. But he's class. I mean, he is just pure class. And I think you'll see him with a run out. Nice comment that was made there by I think it was Joe Lyons further back up there. Mr. Rugby needs characters. There we go. Rugby needs characters like Joe Marler. Love him or hate him. His game's definitely better off with him in it. Alan Wynne Jones possibly would disagree with that, but it's just a bit of crack that was on the pitch at the time, so to speak. But he is one of those characters. But you know what? I was so concerned about sort of the Irish squad and looking at what France were doing and stuff like that, because I just expected this 35, 36, 38 person squad, man squad for Eddie, and then this 28 thing, and then a shadow, and I was like, well, there's some people missing there who you would expect to be in. There's some inclusions there that I'm not quite sure what he's doing. And what's the 28 plus 12? And like you say, and Joe Marler's replacement wasn't even on there. So is it, does that mess with people's heads in the squad? You know, Joe Marler drops out, Debs, and then his replacement comes in that isn't even named in there. So perhaps there's something behind the scene where they know there's an extended squad, but it's just not released publicly. That must play havoc with the players. Bizarre concept.
It is a bizarre concept, isn't it? It really is. You know, and I am going to mention Joe Simmons now. You know, I see Jacob Umaga on there, who was listed as an apprentice last time round. His game management is nowhere near in the same ballpark as Joe Simmons, and I can understand to a great degree why Sam Simmons isn't in the scene at all. But sure. I cannot understand why Joe isn't getting a look in here. I really can't. And I can't understand why Eddie favours Jacob Umaga over him. I really can't. It must mess with their heads, mustn't it?
Definitely.
I'm not going to play.
Yeah.
You know,
I agree. It's a bizarre thing. Just talking about young Jacob, I say young Jacob Umaga. Everybody's young to me. But Jacob Umaga is his father, Mike, played for 14, 15 times for Samoa, and his uncle is the great Tana Umaga, and distant cousin of the late great Jerry Collins as well. So again, and I've seen little bits of him, absolute star player. So very, very quickly, what do the rest of the panel think about Eddie Jones in England? John Anderson, start us off. What are your thoughts, mate?
Yeah, it's typical Eddie, really, isn't it? He does, to Deb's point, he does like to do things differently. There's the Eddie way. England, they're always strong. They're, you know, the depth that England can call on, the fact that you can leave out, you know, Champions Cup winners in Joe Simmons and still have players that most other squads would have probably close to their starters is quite telling. I think you really need to see England start to. England have the potential to absolutely dominate teams if they turn up. It seems to be quite often a mental thing with them, and I obviously don't hope they get that right this time. But let's see if they can.
Myself off because I was having a cough and I forgot to mute myself. Sorry, Brandon. I blame myself for that one. Hang on. We'll take one more thought on England before we move on to looking at France. Nigel Quigley, what are your thoughts on what Eddie's doing?
It's Eddie being Eddie. It's a 40-man squad under a different name, isn't it? Really. Totally agree about Simmons. Some notable omissions, some unusual inclusions, but we're used to that with Eddie. Agree again that if they turn up on their day, they could dominate any side. But will they? I mean, they've got to be favourites for the tournament, I would think. But you just never know what England turns out. Hopefully not the one that's turned out against Ireland the last few times.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, cool, good. Well, time will tell on what's going to happen. Let's look at the. I think on paper you've got to say England or France, realistically, based on what we've seen in the last sort of 12 months. But yeah, you know, Deb's right. You know, a number of stars and players haven't played rugby. I think it's going to be a real different measured Six Nations. France have got to be up there, I think, Luke, for a very, very strong shout, mate, with what you've been producing in the last 18 months. I believe that you've been building for under 23, and I think you've adopted the same as what South Africa or the Kiwis would do, building for the World Cup, and you've already started that early, where some of us, we'll come back to Ireland, haven't even got off the drawing board yet. So, Luke, tell us, France, where do you think you are? What were your thoughts on your squads? And I know Bram will stick up the image on the France thing. Tell us about it.
Yeah, I mean, last year going into the Six Nations with the squad, I was excited because obviously so many young players that performed well in the under-20s World Cup and winning it. But like I say, unsure how they were going to perform. And they've, in that opening game against England, they really proved themselves. Possibly should have won the Six Nations. They stupid mistake against Scotland that cost them with a red card, typical French style. But yeah, this year, strong squad again. going into a few injuries. Ntamack missing. Audrey's missing. We've got Vaca Towers out as well. But that's going into Italy. So I think it's a good start to the Six Nations for France, really to build some confidence there and hopefully get some points against Italy, and some of the players return into the French squad for the harder games against the likes of Ireland and England. I'm really excited to see how it's going to go.
We'll sort of leave it open to the panel now, but just before we go to the panel, we'll come to Rian first. But Luke, was there any omissions from the French squad that weren't injury related that surprised you in any way, or is it those available sort of really the best squad? You've got the best squad together.
No, I mean, before I know Audrey's is out now. He's injured. I think he's meant to be back for the following game. But before that, I was surprised that Walkie wasn't included. But now he's been called up because of Audrey going out. But yeah, apart from that, I think that's it. I think it's a pretty strong French team. It's the last Six Nations. They had a few problems with injuries to wingers. So I know Fiku had to fill in for a game at wing, but Penno's back, and he didn't play at all the last Six Nations, and he was really missed in the last Six Nations. I really rate him as a winger. Really excited to see him back in the squad. And before, I previously said that I really wanted Jalibert to start and Ntamack to go into the centre. Ntamack's obviously not injured now, so it's a good opportunity to see Jalibert at number 10, and hopefully he can prove himself. He lacks confidence sometimes in a big game, so hopefully he gets some confidence against Italy, and he builds as the players as we know he can be, and hopefully we get the opportunity to see Ntamack in the centre when he returns. I'd love to see that pairing with Jalibert, Ntamack and Dupont all playing on the pitch at the same time for France.
I tell you, some strength of depth there, and the variance that you can sort of play around with that. Nigel will come back. Great to see you back. We thought that you'd just gone for a wander around the Aviva. For those people not knowing what the stadium is in the background of viewers tonight, that's where we are tonight anyway. Ladies and gentlemen, you're welcome to tonight's show. It is the first Three Blokes, a Ball and a Bod, a show within the new Three Bod Rugby Group for 2021. I'm Big Joe Shep, your host. Great to be back, and thank you to everybody who is joining us tonight, both viewing and to our panelists. So we've had tonight from 365 Sporting Days talking about England and Eddie's choice in his 40 split 28-12, and blimey, finishers and starters 28 and shadow squads, and I can't even keep up with Eddie. And Luke, very, very quickly, Luke, you look like a Frenchman. You sound like an Englishman. Just tell me.
I was born in England. Born in England, lived here all my life.
In fact, he's on mute for me now. Yeah, good, because we've got messages coming in saying he's not a Frenchman. He is a Frenchman.
Yeah, no, I am French. I'm half. My dad's French. My mum's English, so I'm half French.
Absolutely. Well, you're welcome, mate.
But, it's the better half.
I'm not getting involved in that. We're totally European, eclectic, cosmopolitan, and global, and all that sort of good stuff. But seriously, you're welcome to mate, and thanks for your thoughts on the French team. Randall Phillips, we're going to come to you first. France, what are you making of them? Do you think they are more advanced than any of the other teams in the Six Nations? And how do you think they're going to sort of look?
I don't think they're more advanced, but I think that they've got probably the best foundations towards their own World Cup. I was really blown away by the team last year, the Nations Cup, and they should have won the Six Nations. I love the way they're playing. It'll be interesting to see how they play without Ntamack. He's an absolute, amazing player. But I just think, that they've got Sean Edwards there. You can see his influence in the game. And I just think they're such an exciting team. It's quite worrying they were playing them away this year. But I think, France are going to be the team to look out for. And I love it when France play good rugby, because they are absolutely spellbinding. And some of the best games I can remember in the past have actually been when Scotland and France are playing their best rugby, and those games are absolute blinders because they play the rugby that everyone aspires to play and everyone loves to watch. So, yeah.
Well, just bring John Anderson in on that. Actually, just before we do, John, we've got Clément Le Boudec. I hope that's pronounced correct. Maybe Brandon will pick that up. Allez le bleu, bonsoir, ça va, and all of those good things. That's I don't want to peak too early on my multi-language skill set, but some people might think that's just it. Well, time will tell. John Anderson. Rianne mentioned some of the best games in France and Scotland. What are your thoughts on France, buddy?
Yeah, they're very, very strong side. Very strong side. Scotland have had a lot of success against France actually recently, and the Autumn Nations Cup was the first time in a few games that France have got the better of us. I agree. They tend to be very exciting games. Both teams tend to want to play rugby, which is great to see. And I think every rugby fan is probably just glad to see France went through a really, really dark time where the quality of play that France were putting forward was desperate, and they were relying heavily on a lot of power in their eight. And what they've now got is these young, exciting backs, as they said, from the under-20s. They've got a really exciting core of backs now, supplemented by Vakatawa, who's just an absolute world-class player. So they're a match for anyone. And again, we always say it, every Six Nations, it always depends what France turn up. I picked up the point earlier on that they weren't just a silly red card away from beating Scotland. We would have beat them anyway, but they did do their best to implode, as they quite often do.
Cool, yeah, absolutely, I agree. We stay with you now to look at Scotland. Just before I do, there's some little side chat going on here. It started early on with Joe Lyon saying rugby needs characters like Joe. Love him or hate him, the game's definitely better off with him in it. Ian Gilbert then added in, was that Marler or Shepherd? Good man, I was giggling inside of myself. And then somebody else has added here. Sorry, Joe, that looks like Lansdowne, not the Aviva. Oh, I see what you mean there, yeah. Oh, look, some people go, move on, sir, move on. It's gone. Oh, Joe, that was wasted, that one. I thought it was something to do. And somebody has put in the Marlott Shepherd. There was another one in there, Joe for the... Anyway, we'll come back to that in a minute. But there you go. I love those little side cracks that people are having on. Scotland. We're moving on to Scotland now. John Anderson, tell us all about Scotland and inclusions, omissions, and how you think really you're going to do overall, mate.
Yes. Okay. So there's the squad there for you. So probably starting with the forwards, it wouldn't be a Scottish Six Nations squad without some manner of injury crisis. We tend to do injury crisis better than anyone in the world, really. And this Six Nations is no exception. We've ended up with our third choice hooker, George Turner, is now the only capped hooker we have. Sadly, I think Grant Stewart might have had some time off the bench, but Turner's the main man now. Both Fraser Brown and McInally are injured. We've brung back Gary Graham, who we managed to nick off England a couple of years ago. He's been tearing up trees down at Newcastle, so he's in to try and solve the perpetual number 8 crisis that Scotland have had for a wee while. Just a lot of dynamism in that pack. Again, traditional Scottish kind of way of playing. We're going to play fast and loose in the forwards. Hopefully, not get too many set pieces. So if we could just if everybody could not drop the ball, we would be quite happy with that. Moving on to the backs. The backs are really interesting, and this is probably where there's been a lot of chatter up in Scotland about the backs selections actually this time round. Chris Harris is nailed on at 13. Yet again, he seems to be Townsend's absolute go-to now, which given the maybe he isn't necessarily a fan's favourite across the piece. It's a very bold move from Townsend, but we are glad to see that Hugh Jones has returned. He has been playing fullback for Glasgow this year. He converted to fullback, has been playing very well there, but he is in the squad and he was listed as a centre in the press release. So perhaps we're going to see him maybe back in that 13 shirt where he was so successful previously. Some other very interesting omissions actually in the backs with Sam Johnson, who has been the kind of starting 12, is nowhere near the squad this time round. He has had some injury problems and maybe hasn't had the best form this season, so he's missing out. We've got no George Horn, he's out injured as well. So only 2 scrum halves have been named, Ali Price and Scott Steele. And we've only named 2 10s as well. The obvious best number 10 in the world, Finn Russell, and the fairly freshly qualified Jaco van der Walt, who done okay when he came in the autumn. Probably the biggest question we've had actually is Duncan Taylor has been selected once again. Duncan Taylor, absolute. No one would disagree that he's an absolute Rolls Royce of a player when he's fit. However, that is very, very rare. And he managed to break himself again. Saracens had a friendly game against the Ealing Trailfinders and he lasted 20 minutes and managed to break himself. So that would suggest probably that 12 shirt is up for grabs, which brings me on to probably the biggest talking point of the Scotland squad. Young Mr. Cameron Redpath has come home, except it isn't really his home, but he has come to join us up in Scotland. So he's finally declared his allegiance, having flirted with Eddie Jones for quite some time, but he has decided to come and settle down with a good man up here and come and be Scottish. So we're very excited actually to see what he can do. I think he's got the potential to really nail down that 12 shirt for his own. Considering, I mean, maybe the other options, you've got James Lang, who recently signed for Edinburgh. He's coming back up north as well. Very talented player, but I think Redpath has something about him as a second distributor that Russell always thrives off of. And then looking at we've picked as many fullbacks as we could possibly fit into a squad, and that we've got of the backs, Darcy Graham, Stuart Hogg, Hugh Jones, Blair Kinghorn, Byron McGuigan, Duncan Taylor, and there was Sean Maitland have all played fullback. So we're basically just putting out a team of fullbacks. That's going to be our tactics.
That's a very, very interesting tactic there. I hope people like the change of stadium for anybody who doesn't recognise where we are. John Anderson, where's that?
Oh, that's we've got that. That's the tilt of Murrayfield there. That's looking at the main stand there.
Absolutely. Yep. I used to remember looking out when I worked at Edinburgh Castle for 2 years. I used to look out the balcony of what private club we had there, and then, oh look, there's Mrs. Nigel in the background creeping in. That was definitely coming in from the side on the clear out after the last week's shenanigans of tea towel gate. That we saw Mrs. Nigel, unbelievable.
And don't forget the Quigley Laundry Folding podcast, which will be starting off.
Oh, that was class. John, thanks very much for that. Nigel will stay with you on that. John, thanks for the overview. Scotland's chances, mate. Where do you think they are? It does seem some of the selections seem a little bit strange. But others may say, well, there's quite a bit of depth at the back there of interoperability. Nigel, your thoughts?
Scotland are a funny team. They're a bit like France. It depends which Scotland turn up. We see them playing against teams like France we've mentioned, and they're fantastic games. And then they can be a bit like Ireland and maybe Wales as well. At times they can go a bit flat in some games. It's really hard. It's a good squad, I think. There's a bit of experimenting in there. Some of it's down to injury, but there's plenty of pace in there. But yeah, it's mixed with nice experience. With Finn Russell 10 is going to be influential. We know that. Up front, I think maybe it's a little bit of can they compete up front with some of the teams they're going to be facing, because with the back lines that are out there, it's going to be down to securing ball. And if they don't get ball, they can't use the backs. So it's whether they're attacking backs or defending backs rather than a mixture of both. So I think it'll be down to the forwards. If they can compete, Scotland are going to be trouble for anyone.
Yeah, absolutely. And Debs, before I come to you for just your opinion on that, John, he's brought in a couple of different hookers to some of the inclusions in it. A very interesting point that Nige brings up there. How do you think that McGregor is looking to compete from his pack? Is that why he's bringing in some new blood or trying to mix things up a little bit? Is that an area of concern that you think that he's worried about?
No. So I think he'll back the guys to. We're not going to overpower anyone in those front eight. That's we never do, and that's fine. The new hookers are in purely from injury perspective. We've went from having probably two. I mean, Brown and McInally were both mentioned as potential Lions. And they're both going to potentially miss the whole tournament. So we're now down to George Turner. I absolutely love Turner, actually. He's at Glasgow and he runs lines like a centre. He's not a big hooker. He's not going to, bring the front three smashing forward and destroying scrums type of hooker, but he is going to get about in the loose and cause some problems. The rest of the guys that have come in, Grant Stewart's the same. He's got some serious gas. Ewan Ashman is a former under-20s hooker. He's doing very well down at Sale. It's just getting new faces around the squad purely because we've got those injuries. WP Nell's on a bit of form as well. He's back in the squad. So, we'll fancy our chances to keep ball, but there's going to be a lot of requirement for us to be kind of running about a lot and trying to avoid those set pieces where possible.
Yeah, so we've got one quick question for you before Debs gives us the final bit in Scotland, because we need to move on to Wales. From Conor Broomfield, who runs the excellent 4 provinces at Rugby Forum. Any thoughts on Van der Merwe moving to Worcester immediately after becoming Scottish qualified under the residency rule? Are you comfortable with them very quickly, John, and the playing for Scotland?
I'm 100% comfortable with it. He done his time. It's the same situation as Adam Hastings coming north after doing all his schooling in England, and obviously he qualified through being Scottish through his dad. But it's the same situation. Van der Merwe has put a lot into the country, and it's a short career, going to earn some money, and he is phenomenal.
Absolutely phenomenal. It's like what you did there. It was quite good. You didn't need me to do it, and you made mate, you're a man of many talents. What you went into the show on either the drums or the guitars. Right. So Debs, very, very quickly, your thoughts on Scotland and the changes, some injury enforced, some inclusion from Gregor?
I think Scotland look an exciting team, as we've all said, haven't we? I mean, I was at Twickenham when we had that ridiculous draw. And actually, I was sitting, because my brother lives in Scotland, so I was sitting with Scotland fans, and that first half was just amazing. I think England are going to need to respect them. Listening to what's been said there, it's going to be interesting to see who they pick in their back row. Billy, I thought, wasn't looking particularly fit against Ealing. Looked to me as if he'd eaten far too many mince pies over Christmas. But maybe they need to have the fast lads in there to counter the fast boys in the Scotland forwards. It should be. I'm hoping it's going to be a good game. I obviously hope England win that one, but
there we go. Yeah, I think the Calcutta Cup is always good, and if we have anything like the one we had the other year, then we'll all be happy with that. Right, let's move on, ladies and gentlemen. You're welcome to tonight's Three Blokes of All on Board show. I'm Big Joe Shepp, your host. Got a plethora of people on. We are looking at part 1 of the 2020. I think I said 2020 before. 2021 Guinness Six Nations, with part 2 next Monday. More about that later. We have covered England with Debs Knight from 365 Sporting Days. We have covered France with Luke Voyemi, and we have covered Scotland with the great John Anderson from the Scottish Rugby Podcast. The Welsh Wizardess, Wales. Wayne Pivac came out and said that he reckons that Wales can win the Six Nations. Brandon's going to put the squad up. Talk us. In fact, actually stick the other photo up first, mate, because I saw this photo today and I thought it's pretty powerful. Brandon, have you got that other one there? We might come back to that in a second. It's just the image of it. There's your squad. Talk us through it, Rianne. Inclusions, omissions. What are your thought processes on the squad?
Yeah, well, it's quite interesting, isn't it? We've got players in there who haven't played for a few years. We have players like the captain, Alan Jones, who's not actually fit. He hasn't played since December. We have omissions in the fact that Reece Webb, he's been taken out. Pivac says he lacks pace for the game and accuracy for the game that he's hoping Wales will play, and so Thomas Williams has recovered from his shoulder injury, and Kieran Hardy has retained his place from the autumn internationals. So this, as I said, there's some interesting. We still have quite a few players out injured. We have no Jamie Roberts. There was talk prior to the squad announcement that perhaps he's playing. He's storming at the moment, despite his age. And but who knows? He might come in at the end of it somewhere. George North back on form, so he'll be he's back in with his to his place. An interesting one is Jake Ball. We know that Pivac is concentrating on playing for the Rugby World Cup, and yet Jake Ball is in the squad, but he's actually leaving at the end of the tournament. So it does, you do sort of think, well, he's great, he's there on form. Pivac has been quite clear. He's picked this team that the November internationals were there for developing and experimentation, but the Six Nations squad is based on form players, but it does. He's injured, actually, Jake Ball, so he's in the squad. But it seems as though they've called up everyone and hope that everyone will be fit by next week. And the other second rows with him, Alan Jones, again, he's had no match time. Will Rowlands and Corey Hill. So that's an interesting. We have one new cap or potential new cap who missed out in the autumn because of injury. Josh McLeod, he's been playing really well for the Blues lately, and he comes in with Nabidi, Wainwright, Falatau, and Tips, which I think is quite exciting. And you can see there where Pivac wants to, and the more electric, fast, quick games. You see that that where he's trying to get that speed and field position there. So it's interesting because then you in the squad itself you've got a return for first of all, two omissions who played really well in the autumn were Botham and Shane Lewis Hughes. That's it's a bit of an eyebrow lifter when you've got players of that caliber that are actually been left out. And then you've got Rhys Priestland. He fell foul of the 60 cap rule on eligibility, so he's out of not in the squad then. And then we have recall for Dan Lydiate, who hasn't played for Wales since 2018, so that's exciting. And Rodri Jones, the prop, he's coming back. He hasn't played since Argentina in 2018. So we have quite a mixed squad. It doesn't seem we've got the old hands like George North, Alan Wynne Jones, and Halfpenny. George North should rack up his 100th cap, and Halfpenny will be too shy if he plays all games this season. So we've got this mix of young and old, and nothing really to lose. There's a lot of pressure on Pivac, but we were fifth. No, everyone's written us off, and so I just hope that the Welsh public, that those who expect Wales to win Grand Slam every year and beat England and should do it off nothing, will just sit back and let Pivac play, the sort of give him that ethos he wants to play, and not put too much pressure on him. We're hopeless in Wales about putting pressure on our national team.
Oh, we haven't come to Ireland yet on that one, but we can compare notes, I'm sure, with Nigel in a minute. Connor Broomfield was just adding up there. Louis Rees-Zammit looks to be a real star. If I was a Welsh supporter, I'd be concerned about the tight five in the front row. Options, though, an area that really struggled for them during the Autumn Nations Cup series. And Jamie Phillips just pointed out that Josh McLeod is obviously Scarlets and the Blues. Interesting times for Wales. John Anderson, very briefly, thoughts on Wales? Didn't have a very good showing. Do you need to give Wayne a bit more time as coach to be able to build and look towards the World Cup maybe, rather than put them under pressure now?
Honestly, no. I think so. Pivac came in when Pivac came into the Scarlets. The Welsh, the Scarlets team. It took a while to get used to the way Pivac wants them to play, and that was with him being there every day, coaching them. The Welsh team, it's very different. He doesn't get the players nearly as much. He has to kind of make do with what he's got. He's not able to put that stamp that he wants to put on it as easily. And I really, really think he will, to that point that's just come up there, I think he won't survive the campaign. I think he'll be gone at the end of it. I don't see Wales necessarily being troubling the top three in any way. It's an exciting squad, but I just don't think they can play the way Pivac wants them to play.
Interesting times, isn't it? Yeah, I think different people are going to take different things from this competition. I'm going to move on because we've got two more teams still to cover. So we're going to get young Brandon to jump in. So by the power of magic, 3, 2, 1, back in the room. Brandon Smith, welcome to the show, from director and producer to being a guest. In the absence of our Italian coverage tonight, you are going to cover very briefly for us your thoughts. And look at that, Stadio Olimpico, as if by magic, is a nice little stadium in the back. We apologise to that we didn't get Twickenham on in the first bit there before you shout at me. Technical problems by Bod, who was controlling the buttons in the background there. Anyway, Brandon, Italy, very briefly. Thoughts on it from an external perspective?
Yeah, the Italian squad is a tough one to say where they're at the minute. Italian rugby itself is in a very difficult spot, and I've got big thoughts on that, but that's not what we're going to talk about. Just quickly looking at the squad, there are some big omissions from the squad. Jake Pelledri's out injured. Bram Stein is also out injured. Two massive ball carriers for them who make such a difference, and they are so powerful. They give the likes of Tommaso Allen that 10 the platform then to dictate the game. But I think the biggest omission, and something we've spoken about today already, is all about Matteo Menozzi, who unfortunately has decided that he will not take part in this year's Six Nations, not through injury or anything like that, but he's just simply said that he feels so tired at the minute and feels so mentally tired as well that he doesn't feel like he can commit to living in a bubble for 2 months. So he's just not going to be part of the squad. And he really is someone who has that X factor, who has that ability to create something out of nothing. And, you'd probably say maybe he's the one or two Italian players at the minute who you might put in the bracket of being a genuinely, possibly a world-class player. So it's going to be a tough Six Nations for them. The squad on the whole looks okay. Of course, you've got the likes of Paolo Garbisi, the young fly half, who did pretty well last Six Nations, but it's going to be a long Six Nations for them, I'm afraid.
Yeah, and Paolo really, I'm going to bit of mute on myself back there. A bit of echo, shall I say. Paolo Garbisi was extraordinary. 3 games in Pro 14 and called up to the Italian squad, and he really, I think, stood out and did very, very well. So I think for Italy, Franco Smith is got some players available to him, and he's brought some new people in. I like Franco Smith. I like the way he does his business. I think he's a great coach, and I'm going to be interested to see again the style of play that the Italians do. during this, and how he's utilising those players more, and more of that theme will come on to Ireland. So, but we're going to ask Luke now, if we can. Luke, just to give us a few thoughts on your impressions, probably the closest to Italy, being a Frenchman. I think we've got a semblance of the thing. But Italy, what are your thoughts as a Frenchman? Do you think that they'll be able to show any more improvement with what Franco's brought in?
Yeah, I mean, Italy always score some tries, like almost French flair tries. You see them in a game, and they're like teams that run away from them, but like towards the end of the game, they score some magical tries, and you just wish that they can keep that consistency up and just keep like improving their defense. And if they could stay within grasp of the
Yeah, I think we're losing. Luke's signal there a little bit. Not to worry. I was just reading a note there from Debs on our internal chat, which I will read out because I thought it was quite good actually. Luke, remember France shipped 22 points against Italy in the last Six Nations. Another reason why they didn't win the thing. Yeah, that's a great point. And we just lost our connection with little France down there in East Sussex. It will be interesting to see Deb's night on what Franco Smith does with the players that he's chosen as available to him. He's brought some players in that don't play for Zebra and for Benetton. And what would you be looking for them, Debs, out of this competition?
I want to see them compete for 80 minutes each time, really. It's always been a problem for them. They can seem to be able to live with the team for an hour, and then the fitness lets them down. Even when they had one of my favourite players of all time playing for them. They've got players from Kawasaki, Robert Calvisano, I see, which is interesting. I wrote an article about Italy, having had someone tell me how they only have project players, they don't have Italian players. They absolutely do have Italian players. And any so-called project players that they do have been in Italy for years.
Yeah.
I would like to see them competing. And as I said, those 22 points against France were a big reason that they didn't win the Six Nations last year. Yes, the punch in Scotland as well. But had they not shipped 22 points, I think they would have been better off than England. I'd like to see them, I'd like to see them compete. I think Bramstein and Pelledri are huge losses for them.
Yeah.
I think they're both actually. I mean, Bramstein's a fantastic competitor. He a great replacement really for Parise on that pitch. Everyone likes to see Italy do well, don't they? They really.
Yeah, we do. I think it's that little bit of maybe not. It's that little. It's that little bit of just seeing that improvement. I saw some comments there that were up on the side there before. Go back to the Five Nations and dump Italy. Complete, absolute balderdash. That's what you don't hear very often. I think that we need to have a tier 2 with the promotion and relegation. And yes, I say that every single year, but we do. And we've got a European Championship set up there already. And all we need to do is not have automatic promotion and relegation. So keep Italy in, stop it. Anybody who wants to kick Italy out, because you can't, you never will. They own 1/6 of the Six Nations company, blah, 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 blah. But what you could do is have the European Championship, the tier 2, if you like, to the Six Nations, and then have the bottom of the Six Nations play in a playoff game in the top, and that would be great crack, wouldn't it? Anyway, there we go. On we go. So stop talking about Italy. You are entitled to your opinion, even if it's wrong, my good friend. So there we go. Joe Lyons, I'm only joking. Joe Lyons, when Italy managed to bridge the last 20, then they will be a competitive team in the Six Nations. Until then, unfortunately, they're all on hiding and 20-30 point drain in the last quarter of the game. I disagree. I think in the last 24 months, I've seen them more closer to 80 minutes and keep them going than we have in previous years. So I'm really interested. I go back to I'm a big fan of Franco Smith, and it'll be interesting to see what he does. Right, we need to move on. There was one other things. Ian Gilbert says, yes, Debs, I have a soft spot for Italy. And there was another one from Jamie Phillips there, so Stephen Varney gets opportunities during the Six Nations. Very good 9 as well, absolutely playing down there in Gloucester, I think. Jamie, is he? There's Stephen Varney, is he Stephen Varney at Gloucester or Worcester? Can't remember. Anyway, there we go. Right, moving on. Brandon, thanks for jumping in and helping us with that. Look as if by magic we go back to Lansdowne Road. There you go, Joe Lyons. The Aviva Stadium. Nigel Quigley, Ireland. We're going to pull up the squad for us. You're going to tell us about inclusions, omissions, and all the rest of how you think things are going to be, sir.
Okay, well, I think the squad in general is fairly predictable. They're the top players in Ireland at the moment. Notable inclusions would be, I suppose, Tom O'Toole getting his first cap, although I don't think we'll see much from him. I'm not sure he's quite ready to step up to international. I thought we might have seen Eric O'Sullivan ahead of him, actually. But other than that, the pack is pretty much as expected. In the backs, I think we see, for me, and I was listening to another podcast today, that it seems to me that Billy Burns has stepped into the number 2 shirt, possibly because he offers something a bit different. I think Ross Burns is a great solid player, but he's very samey. We've gone with, in 9s, Joe Lyons. We've gone with Craig Casey, Murray and JGP. And Casey certainly is an exciting prospect. The John Cooney thing, I'm just fed up with it. I don't get it, so there's just no point in going there. And to be honest, Luke McGrath's exclusion is a bit of a surprise too. He seems to have fallen out of favour lately, but yet on the pitch, he still delivers. And I think that possibly there are 2 9s that should be in the squad. Anyway, move on. In the centres, we've got 5 centres, which basically equates to 4 and a tackle bag holder. I certainly hope he gives Stu McCluskey some game time this time, because he's been to quite a few camps now and not got much game time. And if he's not going to give him that, he might have been better looking at somebody like James Hume, a development player, bring somebody in. I certainly hope he's going to give him some game time this time around. Back 3, due to injuries, etc., no real surprises. Jordan Larmer's back fit. Hugo Keenan, who's shown very well, for Leinster. James Lowe, we know what he can do in a Leinster shirt. I haven't seen it in an Ireland shirt yet, but it's coming, I would think. And, despite the claims of a lot of the, frankly, Dublin press saying that the likes of Stockdale had been omitted from the squad, it was nice to see Stuart Farrell and Johnny Sexton come out today and say, no, he's a loss, he's injured, he'll be back mid-tournament, hopefully. And I'm thinking there's a few players that might be back. The names will come to me. So I think it's a fairly predictable squad. What my hope is that we have a game plan that is maybe slightly different to before, and perhaps a plan B. And actually, I think Billy Burns might be the key to that. And I hark back to when Ireland used to have O'Gara and Humphreys as 10s. They played in the same team, very different players. He would always start with Ronan O'Gara. If it went well, he played the majority of the game. If it didn't go well, and he needed to change it up, he would bring David Humphreys on, because he would be a little more varied in his kicks. He baffled defences at times, and that gave the Irish backs a bit of time to play on the ball. So fairly predictable, few surprising inclusions, which hopefully I don't want to bring in people into the squad and they get no game time. I know there's young lads with no caps. That's a different thing. They're in the squad. They're getting used to that. Stu McCluskey, obviously, I don't want to see carrying tackle bags for 5 games again. Or what's the point in being there, frankly? And I hope he mixes up the centres a little to create more spaces. Against Georgia, he played McCluskey and Farrell. A lot of people called for that. They're too samey for me. You need that ball carrying physical brute of a centre. But it's nice to have somebody with a dancing feet outside him, because he will feed off that.
Sure.
I've always preferred, I'd love to see a pairing of McCluskey at 12 and Ringrose at 13 for that very reason, because I think he'd release Ringrose. Whereas see Ringrose too often taking the ball and taking it into contact because he doesn't have the room to do anything else. And so I don't think we're favourites. I'm not even that confident we'll win it. But again, it depends on the day. We might see a game plan we haven't seen before, and I would like to think he's evolving his own plan, and we'll maybe start to see that this tournament. We didn't see it in the Omissions. We just didn't. It was more of the same. Carry, contact, recycle, carry, contact, recycle. Boxy McBox kick gets into the groove and kicks up the pitch. And although I have to say Conor Murray has played well in the last couple of games, and that's justified his inclusion. But let's be honest, John Cooney played 2 bad games, and that justifies his exclusion. So it's, well, the politics of rugby. I don't know what the lad's done, but anyway, he's going to be playing for Ulster over the Six Nations.
Yeah, absolutely. Great synopsis. Nice. Thanks, mate. I think that you raise a very, very good point. I chatting with some people today, and I completely changed my whole view on the way that we as fans look at this person in this position as the best player, so they should be playing. That's wrong, actually. I've changed my view now that coaches need to play the pairings together. So your second row, for example, well, your front row is slightly different, but certainly your second row and your back 3 will be determined on the type of the style of play your opponents are going to do, and whether you're playing offensively or defensively. And I, excuse me, the 9 and 10 for Ireland is a mute subject still. I personally am only looking out to France 23, and that's why Johnny Sexton, his injuries are coming. He's still a world-class player. You can just see his positioning, his vision, his capabilities, his kicking, everything. But the injuries are coming. I want him still in the squad, but I want him coaching and mentoring the next level of the people, because I don't think, with all the will in the world, that the JS10, Johnny Sexton, is going to be in France 23, nor Conor Murray. And yes, Conor had a great game last weekend, notwithstanding box kicks. I wasn't going to bring that up tonight, but Nigel mentioned Boxy McBox kick, and there we go. Dave Topham, White Walker won. But it is an interesting choice of things. So, and again, that you're right, Mike, that centre pairing, I think, you couldn't have Henshaw and Ringrose, who in my opinion are the top 2 centres for Ireland, but you couldn't have them playing against England. Again, Chris Farrell, fantastic player at Munster, doesn't offload as much as you said this afternoon, doesn't offload as much, you're right, as maybe Big Stu. But why have we got Big Stu there? So Ringrose and Big Stu against England. So Stu is carrying forward, taking the meters on, sucking 2 or 3 people into him, and then there's somebody on the shoulder, which would be Gary Ringrose to offload to. And I think that against the likes of England would be great. And not saying anything against Scotland or France, or Scotland or Italy or Wales, but actually possibly Henshaw and Ringrose, if you want just a speedier set in the centres. So you adapt your players, and not necessarily 1 and 2. You can have player 3 and 4, if that's in your pecking order, if you get me. So I think the whole thing there, and that's the whole thing there. If you're playing the pairs of players against, if we go back very briefly to the second row, who's our starting second row? It's got to be James Ryan, but do you have Big Hendo in there? Certainly against England, and actually you'd put Ty Byrne then, who's a turnover king, you'd put him on the flank, and you wouldn't use Josh van der Fleer, because Van der Fleer is lighter, and you'd need a heavier man and a turnover king against to counter the England. So it's those type of decisions, I think. But we're just not seeing that. We're talking about that. So anyway, we've got a minute each, starting with John Anderson, thoughts on Ireland. And I'm going to yellow card that cat, because that's the 3rd time it's coming from the side, and it's clearly trying to just clear Debs out. And we're not standing for that anyway. John Anderson.
Yeah, I mean, as it's the traditional Ireland squad, isn't it? We see there's, the plethora of talent that's coming from the Irish academies and making its way in. John Cooney is a really interesting one from a Scottish perspective. We're sitting here going, "You were Scots qualified, mate. You could have been over here, and we would have certainly had space for you in our squad." But there you go. That's the breaks. That's the decision he's made, and so be it. Again, I think Ireland under Farrell, we've been saying it now for a wee while. They have to really, the point that was made about Plan B earlier on. They do have to start looking at having a Plan B, and I think they haven't really progressed much under Farrell. If anything, they've possibly regressed slightly, and it will be interesting to see if they can change that. I don't think they can, whilst we're still relying on, as you say, Conor Murray, Johnny Sexton as your axis. You're not going to change the way what they do is they do what they do well, but you're not going to get a different game plan out of them. And that's Ireland do need to evolve their game plan. If they're going to get past quarterfinals at World Cups, they've got to evolve their game plan now. They've got to try something different, and they've got all the talent in the world to do it. You've got guys like Ben Healy tearing trees up at Munster who offers something different, but you pick Sexton. So, oh well.
Yeah, absolutely, and the time has to come. If you're good enough, doesn't matter your age, and that's the All Blacks, and France 100%. And 100%. That's what we do, but we're a bit more conservative. So, Rianne, very quickly, 1 minute on Ireland, please. Thoughts?
Wales, even though Ireland are a bit ahead of us, have the same problem. It's basically you've got this mix of new players and the senior players, and perhaps it's time, same with Wales, as these senior players start getting eased out now, and both Wales and Ireland need to build for the World Cup, and that means the younger players. I got a feeling some of these more senior players, as with Wales, are hanging around for a Lions tour that might or might not happen. If the Lions tour is deferred for a year, I should think that a lot of these players you will see will probably hang up their boots. I think they're hanging on for a Lions tour that we don't know whether it's happening. But that's my belief is. Everyone seems to be in mid, sort of in a bit of a hiatus between the old and the new.
That was a very fair comment. Excellent. Luke, very quickly on Ireland. Any thoughts on Ireland?
Yeah, I really like Ireland as a team. But I think, like what everyone else said, I think they peaked back in 2018 when they played the All Blacks and they beat the All Blacks, and they looked like a very good team back then, and they had huge hype around them going into that World Cup in Japan, and they just didn't perform then. And I think they're just on a little bit of a decline. I think they need to do what like France have done and start looking past Johnny Sexton and Conor Murray and start bringing some new blood into the squad.
Yeah, absolutely cool. Deb's Knight finishes off 1 minute on Ireland.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I picked a Lions squad actually for another podcast, and actually really, really struggled to pick a scrum half. I did pick Conor Murray, but there seems to, I don't know, they're just too slow. They're just too slow around the ball. And as we've said, France, the All Blacks, they build for the World Cups. The rest of us seem to build for the Six Nations, and then we'll think about the World Cup after that. That we all need to be thinking about the World Cups. Wales don't need to be worrying about if they beat England. They need to be worrying about what's going to happen in 2023. And the same goes to, Alan Wynne Jones. I am a massive fan of Alan Wynne Jones. I hope that this Six Nations isn't the Six Nations too far for him. I wonder whether he should have stepped back gracefully from this. And I think that goes for a few players throughout each of the squads, really. Ben Young for England.
Yeah, I agree. I think that it's. I think, Rianne, you're right in some ways. There is a hiatus with some of the nations. I think Scotland aren't quite sure where they're at personally at the moment. I don't think they are stuck in a hiatus. I think they're Greg is trying to adapt the players he's got to make the best of what he got. I think he knows his limitations, as John said before, more around the scrum than anything else. But I don't think they're in a hiatus yet. I think he's just to find the right fit to exploit positively the best Scottish play. Wales are in a hiatus. Ireland, I don't know where they are. England aren't. I just don't know what Eddie's doing. And France 18 months ago, and that's my opinion of all the teams. And Italy, I think Italy will continue to improve under Franco Smith. Great to see some new talent from outside of Zebra and Benetton coming in. So I think that's exciting as well. But for me, it all comes back down to working towards a World Cup. And I think that's fundamentally different between France, the only team I think I have seen doing it in the last 18 months. The All Blacks in South Africa, Australia are in the hiatus, but in the Southern Hemisphere and Argentina keep on going and keep on building to try and peak at a World Cup. But the others, it's all about the World Cup. And we just don't do that in the Northern Hemisphere. It's more about winning the Six Nations. I actually complimented Sir Garen Watland this afternoon on the fact that actually I don't think he was ever really might be wrong. I don't think he was ever really that interested per se in the Rugby World Cup because he knew what the limitations would be, but he wanted to win every single Six Nations he could, and that was ever going to be his legacy. Oh, plus the Lions as well. That was going to be his legacy. So where are we? I think because there hasn't been as many games in the European games, and people have been out of stuff through the hiatus in the game itself. I think there's an awful lot of things that we're going to sort of pick up that we're not really expecting, because a lot of the players haven't had the necessary game time, especially some of the English players and stuff like that. I think France have got the capacity to take it, and I can't see anybody beating France for the Six Nations title this time around, having seen some of the top 14 games, having seen what they've been building over the last couple of years. And so therefore they have to be my choice. Okay, let's go back to the studio because it's time to wrap up. We have done 1 hour, 21 minutes, and we have looked at 6 teams. We've been around some stadiums. We're back in Lansdowne, Joe, the Aviva. And we've had some great crack, some great thoughts from the panelists tonight. And we started off with the men's talk at Raven Men's Talk, the guys from Nelsie and Rugby Club. And the link will be back up again. It is in there. Go and do some miles and support them. If anybody has got any mental health issues, or you're just struggling, absolutely struggling to be online, there's go and follow the Twitter account of Post to Post, and he put out a tweet last week, I think it was, when he just said, look, they cover football and rugby and lots of different stuff, and it doesn't matter whether you're into football or rugby or sports or lifestyle or anything else. There is somebody there that they or we or any of these great people, John Anderson and coming in on the Scottish Rugby podcast, Rhiannon and Brandon on the Welsh Rugby Roundup show. Deb's got a huge, one of the biggest networks I've ever come across through 365 Sporting Days and all her other ventures as well. Luke's got into he's got a cross-border community just through his families alone, and we've seen some of those on tonight. Myself and Nigel across the island, man, there's somebody here that, you know, if you need something, if you want to network and you need something, you're not feeling good, just reach out to somebody, please, please, please. I don't want to hear of anybody else sort of going man down or woman down, because there's enough of us out there to do it. So please follow at Raven Men's Talk. It is up there, and the guys will help you. Go and do some miles, put your pictures up, and Andy and Mark and Jack will be ever grateful. On next Monday's show, part 2 of this, the same team is back. You'll be glad to hear. I won't. I'm going to go back to producing, and you'll all be glad to hear that. And Brandon will be in the studio as well. So we've got roughly the same team back. I'm hoping everybody's going to be available. And part 2 next Monday at 8:30 is actually under the banner of the Welsh Rugby Roundup show, the Dragons Balls, Rhiannon and Brandon. And they'll be looking at the part 2, and the part 2 is looking at round 1 games and how they think the what's going to be the I tell you what. And I did see a comment in there before about the cat. Of course, it's coming in from the side. It's black. It's coming in on the black. Absolutely. It's, you know, I don't know why you just don't put ABs or a little fern or something on it, just so you know you're hiding its identity. But we all know. In Serious Point, 8:30 next Monday. And keep it all here. And the new page, the 3bod Rugby group. We can't use the L or the F word because Facebook don't like that. There we go. It's got a yellow card. And Nigel has sent the cat off for 10 minutes. There we go. That's well deserved. But yeah, we're back on Monday with part 2 of the Six Nations, and we'll be doing some more Six Nations stuff as we go through, looking at reviews and previews. Thank you to Andy and Mark and Jack, who were on the very beginning. To Debs, thank you. Take care of yourself. Look forward to see you next week. John Anderson, look forward to the next episode of the podcast. Rhiannon, Luke, and Nigel, to take care of yourself. Always a real pleasure. And to Brandon Smith, who's been producing and directing and keeping everything going down there. And to you, the viewers, and to the engagers and everything else, thanks very much for everything you do. Without it, we couldn't be where we are. We are still continuing to grow and develop. The website will be up shortly. There'll be lots and lots of stuff, great stuff coming good through there. Yannick, you're more than welcome. Catherine, always a great supporter of us. And as the year goes on, there will be more exciting things to come. both here and in our new private members group. Until then, take care, stay safe, stay strong. I am Big Joe Shep. This is the Three Blokes a Ball and Bod, part of the Three Bod Rugby Group. Until next Monday, stay safe. Got a meal of Maffigo, Tagus, Slangafol.